Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the council meeting of July 22nd. If the clerk could please read the roll.
Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Garza. Here. Councilmember Hussein. Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Spatafor. Councilmember Spitzley.
I'm here.
Councilmember Washington.
Here.
Councilmember Wood.
Here.
There are 7 members present at quorum. Councilmember Hussein is absent.
And as I said during the committee of a whole, Councilmember Hussein is home ill. He and his family both have a bug, and we suggested that he definitely stay home. So with that,
We are to the approval of the printed council, oh,
no,
I'm
can we
sorry,
do
we're not.
meditations? Okay, we're going to do meditations and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to first recognize Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually have two, but the first one, yesterday at church, we were asked to pray for Al Salas's grandson. He apparently has some illness with his lungs. They didn't give a whole lot of detail, but we were asked to pray for him at church, and so I want to extend that and have everybody send some good wishes to Al and his family, and for the recovery of his 12-year-old son. The other one I have is, and Andy and Peter and whoever works in the legislature will know that Nay Williams died. He worked in the mailroom, long time servant of the state of Michigan. I'm sorry, Nay Thornhill. I don't know what I was saying. Sorry, Mr. Williams. Nay Thornhill, I'm sorry. He died, longtime member of a good public servant, a member of the state legislature. I'm broken. That's all I can say about that is I'm broken. When you say there's a good guy, he was a good guy. His brother, Charlie Thornhill, a great MSU football player, but Nay was just the sweetest man ever. And so I want to just recognize that and celebrate him because it was tragedy. So thank you for correcting me. I don't know what I was saying, so thank you.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you. I would like people to remember Lori Lolo Ireland. She passed away suddenly and unexpectedly this past week. She worked at EC3. She touched the lives and formed a lot of the children that some of us that are sitting right here at this dais. So if you could remember her family, I'm sure this is a very difficult time. She lost her father just a couple months ago, so they're going through a double loss. So if we could remember them.
Mayor Shore.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't usually like to just agree with people, but for both of these, Nate Thornhill is a longtime friend. I knew Charlie because I met him when I was knocking doors, actually in Forest View, and then he was a Senate sergeant. Great guy. He lived on Scarborough. But Charlie passed away a few years ago, and he's the most honest guy I know. And Lori Ireland, both my kids had Lori. When they were bumblebees in EC3. Anybody who's an EC3 parent in Lansing, which is a lot of people, they know me as Daddy Andy because that's who we were, Daddy Andy and Mama Erin, and both of these people, it breaks my heart. So I just want to agree with the council women who raised these. It breaks my heart, and it's a tough week for us. So I'd also like everyone to remember them.
All right, thank you. If we could please rise. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have for your approval the printed council proceedings of June 24th and July 8th.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the approval of printed council proceedings for June 24th, 2019.
We have a motion on the June 24th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the minutes from the City Council meeting for July 8th, 2019.
Thank you. We have a motion for July 8th. Vice President Spatafor was not here. That's why he did not make the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
We are to the consideration of late items.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the suspension of Council Rule Number 9 in order to consider a late item, and that late item is the resolution related to the nuisance investigation for 3801 Walton.
We have motion to suspend the rule, and then this would be taken up at the appropriate time in the agenda under public safety. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously.
We have a special ceremony, a tribute in recognition of the Ingham County Agricultural Society and Ingham County Fair on their 165th anniversary.
And we have Vice President Spatafor and the mayor that are here to give the resolution out. And if we could have the members from the board of the Ingham County Fair come forward.
All right, we drew straws and I won. We have a proclamation on behalf of the mayor's office and the city on behalf of giving to the Ingham County Fair. I spent 10 years on the County Board of Commissioners, and I know Guillermo was on the Fair Board that time also. The fair is very important for the county. It's very important for city residents to understand what goes on there. It's a lot of fun, a lot of fun activities. I learned a little bit about what some of the future farmers do and learned about animals and things like that. So it was very different. But we're always very supportive of the fair. And, we talk about all the great things that happen in Lansing, but there are great things that happen throughout the region. And for 1 week every year, the fair is a whole lot of fun. So it's great to see 2 Lansing residents who are part of the Ingham County Fair Board. On the county, we always said there are honorary boards and there are working boards, and the Fair Board is a working board. You are really busy, and I know all the time that is put into that. They work hard. So on behalf of myself and the city of Lansing, I'll read the important part at the end. Now, therefore, I, Andy Shore, Mayor of the City of Lansing, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim the week of July 29th, 2019 as Ingham County Fair Week in the City of Lansing. I urge all citizens to join me in attending and enjoying the delightful family-oriented entertainment featured at this countywide event. I give this to you, Guillermo, and Joy, and thank you for all you're doing. And I think Peter's got something.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Shore, Joy, Guillermo, for being here today. I'm a city boy, born and raised Lansing here, but my husband was a future farmer of America, did all the 4-H stuff, so we never miss a chance to head out to the county fair. So I'm really excited to be here today and present a resolution on behalf of council, and thank you for the hard work that you do. As the mayor indicated, I know that it's hard work. It's not just voting on things. It's actually heavy lifting there. So we really appreciate the work that the two of you and the rest of the board do to make sure that the fair is successful. I would like to make a motion adopting the resolution resolving that the City of Lansing City Council wishes to recognize the Ingham County Agricultural Society and Ingham County Fair on their 165th anniversary. We thank you for your continued dedication to the residents of the City of Lansing and Ingham County. Personal addendum, don't forget to bring them to Ingham. Madam President, so moved.
Thank you. We have a motion in front of us. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none. You got a question? Okay, well, we'll pass it first and then we'll go. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, none, so passes unanimously. And we have a comment from Councilmember Washington.
I want to give a special thank you to Joy Gleason. Her dedication to this fair board is beaten by no one. She has worked so diligently to get the message out about the fair, to bring in the urban people into the fair, and to make the rural people recognize that we are here and we are not going away. So, Guillermo, thank you for all your years of service, and Joy, thank you for your passion for this fair. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate this proclamation and City Council, the resolution, and we'll take this to the next meeting. Actually, the fair is going to be here before the next meeting. But the fair is August 29th through August 3rd, July 29th.
Yes, that's why we're doing it
July
tonight.
29th to August 3rd. So you're all invited. On Saturday, we have a multicultural program. Starts at 2 o'clock, so you're all invited to come and see what we have there and enjoy the fair itself. I'm glad that the mayor said that the county is a county fair, not a Mason fair or a Dansville fair. It's a whole county fair, so we invite everybody to come over. And through the years, we have seen more and more people come from the city, and that's a good thing. But Joy has some words from our chair, Debbie Miller.
Good evening, everybody. We heartily encourage you all to come to the fair. One of the things that the word hasn't gotten out about in the past very readily, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that on Wednesday of the fair week, it is Senior Citizens Day. If you are over 60 years old and get there before noon, it is free for you to get in. So we are opening our gates to the senior citizens of Ingham County. We certainly hope to see you there. And I have a fair book for all of our city council members. And we also encourage you, the Ingham County Fair Foundation, to buy a brick to help us rebuild a new grandstands. We want everyone to be able to be a part of it. So I do have some buy a brick flyers if you're interested in buying a brick. And Andy, I'm sure you are.
Thank you.
Well,
All
thank you very
right,
much.
thank you very much.
Again. Thank you.
Hey, Joy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
And we are to comments by council members and the city clerk.
Do we have any comments by council members? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, President Wood. Just want to remind everybody about our 4th Ward Constituent Contact Meeting this 4th Saturday, the 27th, at Gregory's from 10 to 12. Come join us for breakfast, not paid by the city or me, and talk about anything 4th Ward or City of Lansing related. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other council member comments? Vice President Spatafor.
Is Chief going to be here this evening?
No, it's next week that
Next
he's
week, okay.
here for our,
Forget me.
okay, thank you. Any other council comments? I just have a couple of announcements. First of all, Rejuvenating South Lansing, its meeting is tomorrow night at 6:30, and the City of Lansing Treasurer, Judy Keeler, will be at the meeting to talk about city taxes, and and that's property taxes as well as income taxes. We encourage people to come out. That is at Southside Community Center in the Sandy Allen Room, and again, that's at 6:30. Also, I wanted to let council members as well as the public know that on August 5th is a committee of a whole meeting, and we start at 5:30 that night. A couple of topics that we will be having presentations on is ranking or choice voting that we've been asked to hear a presentation on. There will be no action on that. We are waiting for some information from the Secretary of State's office. But the other presentation that we're having is code compliance, Brian McGrain, will be here to talk about code compliance and trash, grass, and weeds. So questions or anything that you have for him at that time, or people in the public that have concerns or questions about the process and how we deal with it and how it's handled, that will be your opportunity to come and address the council. And again, that's at 5:30 on August 5th. Okay, I don't see any other council members, so Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, President Wood. Just a couple of announcements. We're just 2 weeks and 1 day away from the city primary election. So today was the last day for many of the registration methods. So if you still need to register under Proposal 3 that was adopted last year, you can come in person to my office, either at City Hall or at 2500 South Washington, and update your registration or get registered. You can do that up until Election Day. Also, absentee ballots, voters do not need any reason anymore, so every voter is eligible for an absentee ballot. We have mailed an invitation to get on the permanent list. Just to explain that process a little bit, state law doesn't allow my office to send out an unsolicited absentee ballot application, so what I sent citywide was an invitation to request to be on our list, and if you return that, then we will send you an application. So some people were confused thinking that they returned something and then got something back that looked pretty similar. And that was kind of on purpose, so you'll get used to the way that looks, but we do need you to return the second one. That's the actual application for a ballot, and we will get those ballots out to you as quickly as we can. If you have been issued a ballot, we do have to have that back by 8 o'clock on election night, and call my office at 483-4133 with any questions about any of that.
All right.
And with that, we are to community event announcements. If there's anyone in the audience with a community event, we'll give you 1 minute to give us the details.
I have 3 events, but I'll try not to take 3 minutes. The first is a continuation tomorrow of an event that started today, which was the preservation of some historical monuments in Mount Hope Cemetery by a cemetery preservationist who came in at the Friends of Lansing's Historic Cemetery's request. He is restoring the 3 monuments of the Cooley family, who were the very first white settlers of the city of Lansing, along with Mary Kerrs, who was the daughter of the second mayor of the city of Lansing, and a few others as well. The second announcement is that on Sunday, August 18th at 3 p.m. in Mount Hope Cemetery's Fratcher Memorial Garden, we will hold our 3rd annual Service of Remembrance, which is open to the public for anyone who had a loved one who was buried or interred in any of the city cemeteries in the last calendar year. And lastly, on Sunday, August 25th, at 3 p.m. in Mount Hope Cemetery at the Boys Training School site, we will be holding a dedication of the 60 markers that will be placed on the graves of the boys who had never had markers previously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was pretty good for 3 items. Is there any other community events? All right, seeing none, I'll announce that if you want to speak on legislative matters tonight, which includes the items, the resolutions under the consent agenda, as well as the ordinances for passage. We'll give you just a couple more seconds to jump up and sign in on the blue sheet in the back. And with that, we are to the mayor's comments.
Mayor Shore.
Thank you, Council President Wood. So in terms of events, we've got the concerts in the park continue this Wednesday. Junior Aldaco and the Midwest All-Stars will be at Francis Park. On Thursday is the Grand Concert Series with a jazz R&B act, D. Hibbert and Company. Also Thursday, the Lansing Police and Fire have their summer event, and as part of that, they will be doing a rib-off, so they get to both cook ribs And I have to be one of the judges, which I hate judging things because you really only get in trouble with people. But I get to judge, which means I get to eat ribs. So I guess that can't be bad. That's at it's at adjacent to Comstock Park on Maple Street. That night also at 6 p.m. is our neighborhood roundtable, which will be at Foster, where public service will once again talk about basement flooding information and anything else public service. So anybody is welcome to come. And then again, Friday, 8 a.m., the neighborhood roundtable once again at the Foster Center to talk about basement flooding or anything else public service. On Saturday, we have our Pave the Way event at EC3. I am blanking on the details, so let me look. At 11:30, we are going to be talking about the Pave the Way program and tour. That's the effort that deals with 496 and the displacement many years ago. Additionally, at 2 p.m. on Saturday is the Ari Olds Museum Car Capital Auto Show. And if you haven't been to that, it's a blast. All kinds of great old cars that are a whole lot of fun, and we get a ton of people downtown. It's a lot of excitement in our downtown. Outside of that, as a reminder, the Citizens Academy, the applications for the Citizens Academy close August 1st. Those applications are online, or there are hard copies downstairs in City Hall. And as a reminder, the National Night Out this year is August 6th. So if your neighborhood is doing a night out, get some hot dogs, go meet your neighbors. So it's a week from Tuesday, so I'll remind everyone again next Monday, but just as a reminder for everyone out there watching on TV, neighborhood night out's a lot of fun, get a chance to meet your neighbors. It's also primary election night, so you can meet your neighbors and go vote at the same time. So that's what we've got.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mayor, with the storm event that we had over the weekend, I know that there were a number of people that lost branches and things. There was a number on the south end, I think, was more affected than other places. I know we've reached out, but I thought for the public's sake, if you could let us know how we're dealing with those branches and what you're asking the public to do, I would appreciate it.
At this point, we just expect the public to cut them up and bundle them in the same manner they would any other week, and they'll be picked up. You know, the only one time I can remember that we did a special collection with the heavy equipment was after the ice storm, and our public service has done an evaluation, and they've determined this was not the same event as the ice storm. So people are asked to cut them up and bring them forward. Of course, it'll, if it takes time, they can wait till the next week, but just make sure that you don't just leave them, big, huge branches out in the front. You gotta cut them up in the same way you would any other week and leave them out there, and our yard waste folks will pick them up just like normal.
All right, thank you. All right.
Okay, we are to public comment, and we do have two public hearings. Number one, in consideration of permanent zoning for newly annexed properties on South Waverly and Jolly. And number two, in consideration of an obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act district for Summit Development at 700 May Street.
Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Madam President. So number one, November 6, 2018, 8 contiguous parcels of land located on the northwest corner of South Waverly Road and Jolly Highway were annexed into the city of Lansing from Delta Township. There's a single-family residence dwelling on the property at 11907 Jolly Highway. The other 7 parcels, all of which have frontage on South Waverly Road, are being used for various commercial purposes. So the planning board voted unanimously to recommend A, residential zoning for the property at 11097 Jolly Highway, and E2, local shopping district zoning for the properties at 4820, 4848, 4880, 4902, 5030, 5050, and 5058 South Waverly Road, all based on the surrounding properties.
All right, thank you. If you could do the next one.
So number 2, per the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, Act 146 of 2000's OPRA, Summit Street Development LLC, as 100% owner of the property commonly known as 700 May Street, Lansing, is requesting an OPRA district to be established by the city of Lansing on the property. The property has recently been determined to be obsolete by the city of Lansing assessor. Summit Street Development LLC is seeking to redevelop the property consisting of a 1950s era building that was originally used for the manufacturing purposes, but has sat substantially vacant for several decades. A portion of the 70,095 square foot building was rehabilitated in the late 1990s, but the warehouse portion was never fully redeveloped. So due to the current condition and amount investment required, Summit Street Development LLC is seeking the use of Oprah. And once immediate repairs are made and a full determination of cost is available, Summit Street Development LLC is plans to submit an Oprah certificate application. And the Lansing City Council will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. for the both of them.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the first speaker is Art Hasbrook, followed by Loretta Stanaway.
Hello, I'm Art Hasbrook, and first I'd like to speak on B4A, the snow and ice removal assessment, special assessment. I want to say that a number of years ago I was trying to do more in the community for people who may have needs, and I called multiple offices. I was given one contact of a third party who was helping those who are aged, and I think there should be more than just those who have aged, and I do think that having that better documented, if it isn't already, because I haven't actually tried in a couple of years, would be extremely needed. It's just there's a lot of people that have needs. It's senseless not to better organize it. Now, I'm not talking about the department of whatever or office of whatever in the city doing it, but facilitating it. There's a lot of ministries, there's a lot of nonprofits, there's myself who've wanted to help others, and I'm sure it could be done. I also want to talk about F1B. It's actually well covered by federal law, even inciting riots, and state law, blocking traffic. It's illegal. In that, it's definitely a need to make sure that this doesn't happen here as it has way too often around the nation. But it could be simplified, as well as F1A. It could be simplified by simply putting in legislation that Lansing will enforce federal law. If not, in general, it could be specified what laws it is specified by, the code, whatever, and there could be exclusions to that, but that would simplify it. That would help avoid liabilities. It would help avoid unconstitutional practices. I could go on and on about different things with that, but for instance, creating a meme to let the public know how to contact the person that's not in the police department would probably inundate the police department, and that civilian enforcement investigator. I personally have made complaints and not been told about that, but I do think that the information should be needed. But that could be considered disruption of peace, and I could go on and on about this, but it just seems clumsy to try to put that as local code when it's well covered. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next we have Loretta Stanaway and then Mary Reynolds. And it looks like Ms. Reynolds passes as well. So looks like Ms. Reynolds passes as well. We are to the referral of the public hearings. Number 1, the zoning.
We'll go back to development and planning.
And number 2, the Oprah for 700 May Street.
And that too will go back to development and planning.
Okay, we are to the consent agenda.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, item 1 has been dispensed with. Items 2, 3, and 4 will be pulled from the consent agenda to be considered by council.
All right, so
Okay,
we will
then
move
we
on.
are to the Committee on General Services.
Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. What we have before us is claim appeal number 1679 at 8011 North Jennison. It is in the amount of $744. Ms. Puente from Code Compliance came and noted that the property was tagged on November 30th, 2018, with a compliance date of December 7th, 2018. It was re-inspected on December 10th, and it was confirmed at that time the indoor furniture in the front and rear yard was removed and complied with. However, the other items on the porch were still on site. The contractor arrived on December 12th, 2018, and removed multiple items. Ms. Puente concluded that the department recommends denial. Mr. Brewer, who sits on the committee of the claims review, stated that this did go before the committee on April 25th, and based on the billing and evidence from Code Compliance, the recommendation was to deny the claim in full. The woman did come before us, and she stated that the boxes that were on her porch were in good condition, and she thought she could use them, and she had a number of other things that she was hoping to give away to nonprofits. She had a screen on the porch that she said was for her odd-sized outer door. She said that her mother was moving in and she was moving things out of her house and in. But at the end of the meeting, it was the recommendation of the committee to deny the claim in the full amount of $744 based on the photos and the claims review recommendation of denial. The motion carried 2-1. One member did want to cut the amount in half because the claimant went through the process to file an appeal, and they felt that the cost was too high. But it did come out 2-1 to deny the appeal.
With that, do we have any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? We have 5-1. Councilmember Washington? Oh, that was it.
Yeah,
That was
we're
yours.
to the Committee on Public Safety.
Yes. Councilmember Spitzley?
Thank you, Madam President. What we have before us is an order to make safe or demolish for 3005 Herrick Drive. It came through Public Safety Committee. We had a public hearing on it. At that time, the owner did come and have public comment and discuss some of the hardships he felt he faced, pulling permits and doing what he needed to do to make repairs. On Public Safety Committee on July 18th, 2019, our code enforcement folks said that at that time, there had been no contact by the property owner, no permits had been pulled, and there was no return on communication. They also did not come to public safety, and they were made aware of the meeting. They owe over $1,000 in back taxes. And so with that, I move to proceed with the order to make safe or demolish for 3005 Herrick Drive.
We have a motion before us. Yes, Councilmember Washington.
Do we have any supporting photos or anything?
We're supposed to have photos on the thingy up here. I don't know where they are.
It's hard to make a vote if I really don't know what I'm looking at.
I mean, there were photos before, but I thought we were supposed to have photos up here now. I think I just said it twice.
Apparently, we're not seeing.
We're not getting
anything
photos?
from City TV.
Needless to say, I'll give a brief description while they're getting photos, I'm assuming, but the inside of the residence is just totally demolished. There's some outside repairs that need to be done. There's some debris. I actually drove by there the other day, and it looks like the lawn had been mowed, but nothing else had happened. And so there has not been any progress done. I think more importantly, there have not been any of the permits pulled that were required to show progress. And so that's the reason why we're proposing to proceed.
Okay, are there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. The next item we have before us is 410 Francis Avenue. This is we're supposed to have pictures up there as well of that. So this is a fire-damaged dwelling. The SEV is for $15,600, but the estimated cost of repairs is $63,095. It is a rental property, so we're just assuming that the owners, the landlords have just walked away from the property, and they owe over $2,000 in back taxes. This was also on for public hearing. They did not show up. There's no one there. This was on board for our July 18th, 2019 Public Safety Committee, and no one showed up for Public Safety Committee either. And with that, I move that we proceed with the order to make safe or demolish.
All right, we have a motion, and this would be for 30 days because it is fire damage.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Washington.
This one I am familiar with, and I too have gone by this one, and the residents in that area have been upset about this property for quite some time. So I'm glad it's coming before us.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. What we have before us is setting a show cause hearing in consideration of orders to make safe or demolish for 5624 Joshua. The SEV value of this home is $29,300. The estimated cost of repairs is $120,960. We do know that they did have a roof permit because there are issues. Oh, there we go. Well, there are issues with the roof, but the roof permit has expired. There was a permit pulled May 2019, but as of the date of 7/18, no repairs had been done. On 4/25/2019, it was determined to be unsafe, and then referred for make safe or demolish. It is a home that is under land contract. And there are $1,844 in back taxes owed. And with that, I make a motion to set the show cause hearing, which would be for July 29th, 2019, for show cause hearing for make safe or demolish.
Are there any questions or concerns on this property? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Before we go on to the late item, I did want to add back with the property on Francis. Apparently, there was no insurance on that. When there is insurance involved, we receive a portion of that so that it can be utilized for Make Safe if necessary. But there was no insurance on this property. So that takes us to the late item. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. What we have before us is a resolution to recommend to the city attorney that we start the process to declare this property a public nuisance. This property is at 3801 Walton in Lansing, Michigan. We've had a long history on this property of concerns and illegal activity at the property. And so we put in a lot of time and a lot of resources. The most recent was a March 18th, 2019 agreement between the property owner and the city attorney. We brought them in. We talked to them about some of the concerns that we've had at the site. And based on that, the landlord did agree to certain things, and they memorialized those agreements in a letter that went to him. Based on reports that we had July 18th in public safety, little or none of those things have been addressed. From the public safety officer, the CPO officer has said that since February 2019, there have been 25 calls alone on that at that site, not to mention multiple other calls in previous years. Let's see some of the other issues at the site, you know, are, you know, there are pest control issues, there are safety issues. We had asked for cameras on site to protect the residents. There apparently are cameras on site, but no way to track and record the information. We asked for regular lists of tenants provide to us, and that hasn't been provided to us. So it is at this point a safety issue for the tenants. According to Councilmember Garza, two of the units are unlivable. It's really sad because it is, in my mind, preying on the least fortunate of people here in the city of Lansing. But we have worked with them and tried to work with them for a very long time, and this is the end recommendation to a long process of trying to work with the landlord to bring those properties into compliance. And with that, I introduce the resolution.
We have a motion on the resolution. Councilmember Garza.
So moved.
I wondered whether you wanted to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I will mention some
Because
stuff.
it's
Sorry
in
about
your
that.
ward.
It is
Been
in my
working
ward,
on
and we just had this discussion at Committee of the Whole, so I would like to reiterate what Councilwoman Spitzley said. I mean, this property owner, we've brought in several times into the city attorney's office to work with them. The past community police officer, I mean, spent I don't know how many hours. I mean, every committee on public safety last year seemed to be consumed by this property. I mean, and you said 20 some odd this year. There was 80 the year before, 90 the year before that. And this property is generating so many calls. It's a 16-unit apartment. I mean, it's creating more calls than some of the larger apartment complexes with multiple hundreds of tenants in them. Smoke alarms. I mean, we walked through all the units that we walked through that he let us walk through. The smoke alarms weren't even up in the ceiling anymore. He said that he was going to install cameras and provide the police department Scram, was going to connect them with Scram, but there's no recording device so it's just kind of like they're up there just to hold us off at bay. I mean, multiple code violations and rodent problems. I mean, we thought we were going somewhere with this property owner, and it just seems like it's not a very big priority on his list, and it's unfortunate because he does have some good tenants, and he promised time and time again that he was going to provide a lease agreement between his tenants and supply that to the police department so we could see, I mean, there's been drug dealings where police pull up, they scatter in the house. I mean, the last one, they found a gun, and there was a sexual predator living in the place that was already kicked out from one apartment, is living in with another one. I mean, it's just it's a bad property, and something needs to be done. So this is where we're at right now. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Councilmember, Vice President Spatafor.
It's mostly directed at the Office of City Attorney over there, Mr. Smirka. Does this meet your definition of public nuisance?
Well, that's going to be a decision. The resolution actually says it's declared to be a public nuisance based upon the evidence that's been produced at the Public Safety Committee, the testimony of the officer at the Public Safety Committee, the number of calls for service, the fact that the code violations that were subject to an order of compliance from building safety have not been complied with. There is enough there. When it would be based on the affidavits we will file with the circuit court.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I just want to say, again, I think there has been ample opportunity to try to work with the property owner to resolve this issue. I think the straw that broke the camel's back with this was the fact that cameras had been installed, but there was no way to monitor those, and the fact there were still so many outstanding issues. And today, when we heard from the community police officer that people were being intimidated and threatened by the property owner in not making complaints or not telling code about certain issues that were happening in their units was the straw that broke the camel's back, that something needed to be done to protect these people. We have also asked the city attorney, as he moves forward on this, to also work with Joan Jackson Johnson to make sure that those that are dwelling there, that we can find appropriate housing for them as well. So with that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
We are to the Committee on Public Services.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, members of the council, I would like to move the special assessment roll for snow and ice removal for winter 2018-2019.
Did you want to discuss how?
Get in front of us. So yes, the committee did meet last week to discuss this issue. We had some 51 parcels that were assessed for snow and ice, ranging totaled around $11,200 in fees. We heard 6 appeals. All 6 were denied, and a few were actually denied after the owner saw the pictures. So I want to thank the staff and employees at Public Services for working so hard to document their work, because it makes our job a little easier when considering these claims. We did have to pull one off the agenda, and that was, let me see here, that was 1117 West Kalamazoo Street, number 1. There's also one on there that isn't number 1 for the same address on Kalamazoo. There was a notification issue. The post office, we believe, is to blame. They would not deliver a letter that was addressed to Grand River Avenue, and it bounced back. So Office of City Attorney advised us to just to send the notification again. Then we'll send out, we'll do a special roll for that single address if there's no appeal there. These fees will go on the winter taxes. We've asked again this year that hopefully the process gets to us before that so that we can get them on their summer taxes. We'll see how that happens, but right now, as it looks, they'll be on the winter taxes.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Vice President Spatafor? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, we are to ordinances for passage. An ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan to amend the Lansing Codified Ordinances by amending Chapter 664, Section 664.01 to make violation of subsection C, which prohibits language that would tend to cause an immediate breach of the peace, a municipal infraction, is read a second time by its title. The ordinance was reported from the Committee on Public Safety and is on the order of immediate passage.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. This one is, and a group of these, just for education, these were brought to us by the City of Attorney to provide some clarity and clarification to the existing ordinances. And so this one is a clarification for the conduct of breach of peace, which is a municipal infraction. It adds a second category of disorderly, which is a civil infraction, and it will allow some flexibility for the prosecutor. Under the civil infraction, the fine could be as high as $250 or whatever the court decides. So with that, I move for passage.
Mr. City Attorney, was there anything you wanted to add on this?
Many ordinances of the city were adopted years ago. Technology changes, court decisions cause what were otherwise valid ordinances to no longer be valid. Element of vagueness and overbreath has been introduced through the court decisions. In this particular case, number one, the use of profanity has to be removed. There's a First Amendment issue with that, so that's taken out. And the other, through the course of prosecution, there is some conduct that doesn't rise to the level of a criminal penalty. And that's what this is. And that is, so that's Section C which will be designated as a civil infraction and not a criminal misdemeanor. Again, coming out of the prosecution, these issues will arise. We're also going to look at all the general offense ordinances. There may be other cleanup or modernization that needs to happen.
Okay, with that, that's roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Jackson has a question.
Thank you. I guess I'm just still a little, I know we're at the vote, but confused about the intent of putting specific conduct to be a general remedy civil infraction. If your intent is to have something to reduce our misdemeanor ordinances from that's not criminal, why would we cap it at something that's so specific? Because prohibits language that would tend to cause an immediate breach of peace is already fairly defined as specific fighting words instead of like loud and boisterous, which we generally have as a criminal offense. So if the intent is to have something to fall back on, are we just gonna like just say, well, I know this isn't really fighting words, but just, you know, you pleaded this because it's a civil infraction. Is that the intent for the rest of the purpose?
Mr. City Attorney.
It comes out of prosecution. If you look at A and B, there tend to be more serious acts of conduct, whereas C is more what you would characterize as fighting words. That's why that is being made a civil infraction as opposed to the traditional disorderly conduct, which has always been in this city 90-day misdemeanor.
I guess, you know, if there's an incident where some people are loud and maybe cussing at each other, but it doesn't rise to, would tend to cause an immediate breach or fighting words, I just don't see how that fits in all of the ways that you may want to use it. So that's all.
Okay, this is a roll call vote.
On adoption of the ordinance, Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Garza. Yes. Councilmember Hussein. Councilmember Jackson. Yes. Councilmember Spatafor. Yes. Councilmember Spitzley. Yes. Councilmember Washington. Yes. Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The ordinance is adopted.
Would you like immediate effect?
Move for immediate effect.
We have a motion for immediate effect. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. He'll read the next one, and then we'll call on you.
Okay, we have an ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan to amend the Lansing Codified Ordinances by amending Chapter 658, Section 658.04 to clarify the places where crowding, obstructing, or blocking of passage is prohibited, and providing for warning by a law enforcement order to cease such behavior as the ordinance is read a second time by its title. It was reported from the Committee on Public Safety and is on the order of immediate passage.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is another one that we're introducing for a little bit more clarity on this specific ordinance. It will include more activities which would constitute an obstruction, and also it is amended to add a first warning. One of the questions asked was whether or not blocking would be, you'd have to be a physical person, or would it have to, you can use a vehicle to block. And according to the city attorney, and I'm sure that he will add some more to this, it was stated that any activity could constitute a blocking, but would have to be done by a person or tied to someone doing that blocking. And in this ordinance, the violation would be a misdemeanor.
Mr. City Attorney.
That's correct. And this ordinance also, again, has been on the books for a while. A recent U.S. Court of Appeals decision in District of Columbia, April 5th, in dealing with the ordinance that's currently on the books, has decided that type of language is void for vagueness. So it's corrected by giving the officer the ability to give a first warning, and that's what's added here, is the first warning. But also, in looking at the ordinance, we had to also add some words to more specifically describe the conduct that is being prohibited. But it's basically driven by practical experience in the prosecution, but also by the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C.
Okay, we have a motion out there. Are there any questions? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote.
On adoption of the ordinance, Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Spatafor. Councilmember Spitzley. Councilmember Washington. Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the ordinance is adopted.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. Move for immediate effect.
We have a motion for immediate effect. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, we have an ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan to amend the telephone harassment ordinance in its entirety, Section 658.05 of the Lansing Codified Ordinances by defining and regulating the conduct of telecommunications access device harassment and provide penalties thereof, is read a second time by its title. The ordinance was reported from the Committee on Public Safety and is on the order of immediate passage.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. As the clerk said, this is an ordinance related to specific telephone harassment. There are questions of, enforceability of the ordinance, and the information received from the city attorney said that if there is proof that there is an intent to harass with repeated communications, and that would include robocalls, if they can prove that there is an intent to disturb with continued communications, then that would fall under this ordinance. Examples were issues with disgruntled relationships, government offices receiving harassment, repeated calls. There was a question asked as if this ordinance would provide a first warning, and we were told that it would not, but there would have to be proof that they are using the device with the intent to disturb someone's peace and quiet. And then there was another question of whether or not this would include computers, and our city attorney informed us that it would be any device that creates a transmission, so yes, it would include computers. And with that, I move the motion.
Mr. City Attorney.
The original ordinance that's being amended has been on the books for many years, and it was intentional use of the telephone for harassment, and Councilwoman has described different circumstances where that has occurred. The main effect of the amendment here is to bring it up to speed technologically by adding telecommunication devices, whether they be cell phones or computers or text messages. But that's the main thrust of this amendment, is to add telecommunication access devices as defined in the definition.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
On adoption of the ordinance, Councilmember Dunbar. Yes. Councilmember Garza. Yes. Councilmember Jackson. Yes. Councilmember Spatafor. Yes. Councilmember Spitzley. Yes. Councilmember Washington. Yes. Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the ordinance is adopted.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Madam President. Move for immediate effect.
I have a motion for immediate effect. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk.
We have an ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan to amend the Lansing Codified Ordinances by amending Chapter 606, Section 606.03 to require signs or advertisements to include the sign contact information of to include on the sign contact information of the person or organization conducting the sale, is read a second time by its title. The ordinance was reported from the Committee on Public Services and is on the order of immediate passage.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move the ordinance amending Chapter 606, Section 606.03. This was discussed at a public hearing here in this room, and then last week the committee met again to finalize the work on the ordinance. Nothing was changed. It does allow for these signs of temporary sales to include contact information for the person or organization sponsoring or conducting the sale, or the address. Current law requires the address of the sale. We heard some feedback from some folks doing these like auctions and things like that. They're not always at the same spot. So using nice looking signs is probably preferred to the handwritten signs we sometimes see stapled on telephone poles and things like that. So this was an attempt to bring up to date the law from 1985 when it was first adopted, to allow for a little bit more flexibility in communicating with the organizers of these sales.
All right. Are there any questions for Vice President Spatafor? Seeing none,
On-
it's a roll call.
On passage of the ordinance, Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Garza. Yes. Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Spatafor. Yes. Councilmember Spitzley. Yes. Councilmember Washington. Yes. Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the ordinance is adopted.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move for immediate effect.
Have a motion for immediate effect. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay, we are to speaker registration for public comment on city government-related matters. That is the yellow sheet in the back, and we'll give you just a couple more seconds to jump up if you need to sign in. With that, we are to reports of city officers, boards, and commissions.
Vice President Spatafor.
Madam President, I move that all items be considered as being read in full and that the proper referrals be made by you.
For motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk.
We have letters from the city clerk regarding minutes of boards, commissions, and authorities.
Placed on file.
Liquor license, Bar Matina LLC to transfer ownership of license from 511 East Hazel.
General Services.
Letters from the mayor regarding sole source purchase, Lansing Police Department for Transcend Robotics as the vendor for vintage F3 robot.
Ways and Means and Internal Auditor.
Sole source purchase, Public Service Department, request for C2AE Engineering Services as the vendor for purchase of consultant for scoping, survey, hydraulic, modeling, and monitoring of the culvert construction services for culvert replacement.
Ways and Means and Internal Auditor.
Sole source purchase, Economic Development and Planning, Parking Services Office, request for traffic and safety control systems as the vendor for purchase of TIBA parking entry and exit management services.
Ways and Means and Internal Auditor.
Grant acceptance, 2018 notice of funding availability grant.
Ways and Means and Internal Auditor.
Grant acceptance, Fratcher Foundation perpetual grant.
Ways and Means and Internal Auditor.
Z5 2019-521 West Hillsdale, rezoned from DM4 residential to D1 professional office district.
Development and Planning.
Brownfield Plan number 76, the Farnham Building redevelopment project at 123 West Allian.
Development and Planning.
Ordinance to amend Chapter 1300 medical marijuana establishments.
That will be going to Public Safety. We will be starting a series of meetings on that. They will start on July 30th. There will be one July 30th, August 6th, August 13th, and August 20th, and they'll be at 10 a.m. In the conference room. If we have more than can fit in the conference room, we'll have it in the chambers. But I do want the public to know that those meetings are coming up. Thank you.
And a letter from the Community Corrections Advisory Board regarding an application for Office of Community Corrections funding and plan.
Committee of the Whole. I'm sorry, that should have been Ways and Means.
Okay.
And Internal Auditor.
Communications and petitions, a communication from the Department of Treasury regarding the Tax Management Association, Associates' performance of follow-up reviews.
And that's Committee of the Whole.
Communication from the municipality regarding the annual convention.
Placed on file.
Claim appeal from Garrett Smith for trash violations at 2515 Lynn Lawn.
General Services.
And a claim appeal from Douglas Glockson for trash violation at 130 Island Avenue.
And that would go to General Services.
We are to motion of excused absence.
Have a motion for excused absence. Councilmember Spitzley.
I move that Councilmember Hussein be excused for this evening.
We have a motion of an excused absence. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
We are to remarks by council members.
Are there any comments from council members? Seeing none.
Remarks by the mayor.
Mayor Shore, do you have any closing remarks? No closing remarks.
And then we are to public comment on city government-related matters. First, we have Art Hasbrook and then Loretta Stanaway.
Hello, Art Hasbrook again, and I would like to kind of continue on something I had mentioned, but beyond the scope of the specific. The civil infraction, for educational purposes, it actually removes it from the prosecutor, and it takes away some due process if it's continued in a informal hearing. So somebody that is given such a civil infraction could have justification for a police interaction where there's something given and they'd have to cease, and it would be justification for whatever other follow-up by a police officer if there was some reluctance to accept the ticket or whatnot. It actually can take away your rights of due process. But there's also a lack of information. If somebody goes into a said case, they are not necessarily, as I have not been notified of other, or the totality of what it means to have a civil investigation. A civilian investigation actually sounds a little bit disturbing. You know, we can send a civil investigator to your home, or you can take care of it with a sergeant here, internal affairs. At any rate, I also want to elaborate more on federal law. Actually applying it as, respect to federal law removes a lot of this heartache from improper verbiage, vagaries, whatnot. Also, liabilities of being unconstitutional. I could go on and on about, just how wrong it is not to have fair representation because of a lack of finances or whatever else. But with federal law, like we had issues not that long ago where there's actually legal code about treason if somebody is inciting or inducing unauthorized aliens to break federal law. There's federal law against certain drugs like marijuana. There's other things that I could go on about. I have African American, West African genetics. But if I elaborated on the hysterical media inciting hysteria, somebody would call me racist, even though I've been to Africa on a couple medical missions. I have other family. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Next,
you.
we have Loretta Stanaway and then Daniel Murray.
I see that you've got coming up grant acceptance for the Fratcher Foundation, and I thought I would just take this opportunity to maybe inform the public and perhaps the council a little bit more about what that exactly entails. Mr. Fratcher left money in an estate that he called the foundation, which is to be used only to beautify Mount Hope Cemetery in ways the city cannot afford to do that are not routine maintenance. And this is designed to go on in perpetuity, and so far has done so. Some of the things that have been funded with his money at this point, when the fence around the cemetery was replaced, the majority of that funding came from the foundation and the rest from Park Millage. The newly created Fratcher Memorial Garden, which was a 9-year project that ran close to $750,000, was largely funded by his foundation and then some Park Millage money as well. There's also been an extensive effort in Mount Hope to remove diseased or dead trees and their stumps and to replace them with new trees, again funded by the foundation. Part of the advantage of having the Fratcher Memorial Garden in Mount Hope Cemetery is that it includes columbarium walls, which the first 2 have now been filled and the third one is on order. And those create new revenue streams for the city, as does the cremation tower section in that also, and the development and opening of Section G in Evergreen Cemetery. So all of these things have contributed to an improvement in the conditions of the cemetery and their operations, and have significantly reduced over time the general fund subsidy to the cemeteries, and continues to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Danielle Murray. Okay, Willie Williams, and then Mary Reynolds.
Evening, everybody. Point of clarification, is there a meeting on the 5th?
Yes, there is a committee of a whole on the 5th.
No, council meeting.
No, there's no council.
None on the 5th, on the 29th, no?
Yes, there is a meeting
So it's-
on.
Okay,
on
so
the
it's not, all
29th.
right, we got to change here. People should know it. Willie Williams, downtown Lansing. Good evening, everybody. How do you do? Long time no see, but it is election time, so that gets me out of my chair, even with all the arthritis. What I would see people do, first of all, is to show up. Because we've learned in the last few years that 1/3 of us are racist. So we need 2/3 of us to show up and whip it and kill it, knock it down. We did a good job in 18, getting Congress back. We have a similar situation here on council coming up this year. In fact, primary is in 2 weeks. There is a debate, which is hard to realize because there's been so many of them in the past and so few of them now. There will be a first ward debate this Thursday, the 25th, at 215 North Capitol. The church is United, I forget. Say again? Central United Methodist, 215 North Capitol, starts at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. Show up, ask questions. And as my usual, as per my usual, what I do for the people asking them to do this is this: vote just for Democrats this time. And on council, we don't know who the Democrats and the Republicans are because they all claim to be Democrats. What I didn't know was that Carol Wood and Patricia Spitzley are on a team together. They increased economic growth by themselves. Ms. Dunbar, Spatafor, and et cetera, had nothing to do with it. They're on the rise in Lansing, thanks to the city team of Carol Wood and Patricia Spitzley. The rest of you don't count. So what I'm thinking is that the Republicans are, of course, Councilmember Washington, of course, Councilmember Wood, and I'm not sure about Spitzley anymore. Apparently, she's on the Republican team. Remember that when you vote.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Reynolds.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end this night on a nice note. I don't really care whether you're Republicans or Democrats, just so you take care of my city, okay? You can be anything you want to be. You can even be a libertarian or an individual. As long as you take care of my city, that's all I ask. And on that note, we're going to end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. So we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he said 8:15. Wow, that was pretty good, Jim.